Hi, it's Dave and Paul, and we're going to talk about some principles related to gun defense. Just like our knife defense videos, there are certain fundamental principles that apply to all of the techniques that we like to use. One of the concepts that we talk about in here is the acronym ACID. ACID is an easy word to remember, but when we're talking about weapons defense, and this is actually true about knife as well, there are a sequence of things that we need to happen in order for us to be successful. The first one is we have to avoid. Okay, so we have to avoid the attack or the danger. That can mean different things depending on the type of weapon that's being involved. When we're dealing with a firearm, okay, we're gonna use a handgun in this video. But when we're dealing with a firearm, the dangerous part of this is not the gun itself; it's what comes out of that little hole right there. Okay, so one of the most important things that I have to do is make sure that I act quickly to get out of the way of where the bullet is going to come if the firearm discharges. Okay, nothing else matters if I fail on that point. So that's job number one. So that's our A, avoid. The second one is, for C, is control. We want to control the weapon. We can do that in a number of different ways. Sometimes it's by controlling whatever arm is holding it, the hand, the wrist, depending on the type of weapon. When we're dealing with a firearm, we want to be very careful that we're controlling the actual firearm itself because of the way body mechanics move. A knife, if I have Paul and I have this against his body right here, well, there's very little he can do with his wrist in order to make the knife injure me from this position, assuming that he's holding it in a standard grip. A firearm is not quite like that because he can simply turn his wrist. Okay, so I need to be very conscious of where that firearm is pointing at all times, and I need to make sure that I am in control and I limit the places where it can point. Okay, the next thing that we're going to do is we want to injure the individual. Okay, injuring the individual does a number of things for us. Number one, it's very discouraging for somebody who thinks they're attacking you to all of a sudden they are being attacked and they are getting hit. It is confusing and it really, frankly, it buys you the little bit of time that you need to get into a proper position in order to do the next part of the ACID acronym, and that is D, disarm. Okay, so that is sort of the sequence of events that we're going to do. Now, with a firearm, if we're dealing with a firearm to the front, there are any number of situations that we can be dealing with. But again, all of these principles are going to be the same, but we may have to think about them differently depending upon the situation that we're with. So if I'm standing here by myself and Paul comes and he sticks a gun in my face, okay, first thing that I need to do is I want him to believe he's got the upper hand. Okay, and you're going to find that this is true with any number of firearm defenses because it allows us to do a number of things. So the first thing that I'm going to do if I see him is I'm going to put my hands up like I'm scared, and I'm going to act scared, and I promise if this is a real firearm, you won't have any trouble acting. You will win an Academy Award for your being scared act, okay, because you will be terrified. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put my hands, please don't hurt me, please don't hurt me, okay? And what I want to do is get my hands up. You'll notice I look like I'm very scared, etc., but look how close my hands are to the gun at this point. See, he doesn't see any of this as a threat to him, okay? So that's number one. You know, please don't hurt me, please don't hurt me. Then I want to ask him an engaging question. I want him to try and start talking. The easiest engaging question I can think of is, what do you want? And now he's going to start telling me his evil plan. Okay. Okay. He's going to start talking. As soon as he starts talking, then I'm going to go. At that point, I'm going to move and I'm going to act. Notice how quickly my hand came across with that. So he pulls out the gun and says, whoa, what do you want? What do you want? Okay. Because I start when he's talking, believe it or not, we are not capable of multitasking. The concept of multitasking is a huge fantasy that everybody talks about because it sounds really cool. Your brain is capable of doing one thing, focusing on one thing at a time. So if he's talking, he's focused on talking. Okay? He has to stop talking, switch into bad guy mode again, before he can do anything with this gun. Okay, so by asking that engaging question and getting him to start talking, that gives us just a half a fraction of a second that we need in order to avoid the firearm. Okay, now at the same time I'm grabbing and I'm controlling the weapon. Okay, now there is a significant chance that when this part happens that the gun is going to discharge. Okay, believe it or not, if you know anything about firearms, you can see this one is styled as basically a 1911, which is a semi-automatic gun, meaning that you pull the trigger, it fires, a slide comes back, it ejects the magazine, and it pushes a new bullet back into the chamber so it can fire again. By grabbing it and covering where the bullet's supposed to come out, the bullet can't get out of there. And what happens is the gun becomes what's called jammed, meaning that it's not capable of firing again until the jam is cleared, and it's cleared by getting that case to eject out. But he can't do that while my hand is over them, okay? So if it fires, that's okay. And believe it or not, your hand is strong enough to hold the slide in place when it fires. So it's going to keep that right in there, okay? The next thing that I want you to notice is how straight my arm is. Okay, if my arm is bent, all Paul has to do is step back, okay, and he pulls the gun right back in line with me, okay? Whereas if I have my arm straight and it's locked out, even if he steps back, okay, he can't move that, okay? So the gun is over here. The next thing we're going to do is again, related to controlling and injuring. What I like to do from this position is get my second hand on the weapon. What I'm also going to do is I'm going to kick at the same time, okay? I can also hit. I can do any number of things, but injure is very, very important. So I'm going to go, boom, I'm going to kick, okay? An easy way to disarm the firearm at this point, and notice that at all times, this is not pointing at me. It's always pointing someplace else. An easy way to disarm is to go into a small circle, bring the firearm down, back, and I'm going to pull back. Okay? I don't want to do and give him the same advantage that he gave me by being close in with the firearm. So I'm going to get back, away from where he is. Now, the camera frame is not very big, but I'm going to step back maybe 8 or 10 feet. Okay? I don't want him anywhere near me. Okay? And then at that point, I clear the jam, and I can either hold him there, I can tell him to run away, I can run away. There's any number of things that I can do from that point in time. So that's just an example of what we can do. There are other techniques that we can do if the gun is put directly in our face, because what if I have my friend who's standing over here? Well, if I disarm the firearm that way, they might shoot my friend. So I have to be aware of what is happening around me and what my options are. But those are the basic fundamentals that you'll see in every firearm defense technique that we use in our system. They all go back to that principle of ASSIE: avoid, control, injure, and disarm.
Okay, one quick thing to talk about when you're training with firearms. You'll notice that the firearm has a little ridge here to protect your finger, a trigger guard that's on a normal firearm. Whenever you train with firearms, don't put your finger in that grip, and don't put your finger out here like you would normally do if you're correctly using a real firearm. The disarms that we use tend to wrench the finger back either this way or that way. And if you're training that way, you're going to get a broken finger. So if you are the person doing the disarm, make sure that the other person is holding the gun incorrectly, what we call monkey grip. So they're down below the trigger guard. So if you're the person holding the gun, make sure you're using monkey grip. If you're the person doing the disarm, make sure the other person's using monkey grip, because you don't want anybody to get a broken finger while you train.
Okay, final note about firearms training. When you train with firearms, we use techniques from a lot of different systems based on their functionality for a particular application. So we'll use Krav Maga techniques, we use Systema techniques. It really basically works for what the situation is, because the gun situation can be any variation of a front down low. It could be over at the side, it could be at the side behind me, he could be behind me, from a straight arm stance, he could be a little bit lower in the back. He could be up close because I wasn't paying attention, holding my arm with the gun in the back. He could have the gun to my head from the side. With this hand here, this hand could be, so there's a lot of variations of how you could be in a situation with a gun. So we have a lot of different techniques for those different situations. The principles are always going to be the same. Whatever situation he's in, if he's up here and he's got the gun on the side of my head, the threat is the bullet that's going to come out at the end is going to blow a hole in my head. So I want to get my hands up, and my first thing is going to be to avoid the bullet. When I snatch this here, the bullet is not going through my head anymore. Now, of course, if I've controlled and avoided at the same time. Now, if I don't injure him and I just hold on to this gun, he will figure out a way to get that gun loose and shoot me with it. So we have techniques for all these different situations. In this situation, I'll step to the side, hit him with one elbow, him, hurt him a little bit, which is the injure phase. Then I've got options with what I can do with the gun. I can turn through, I can turn outside. If I turn here, I can break his finger. So we have variations of these gun defenses for every different scenario. And we train them, and a lot of times when we train, you don't know what's coming. We don't know where the gun's going to be, and you have to adapt and react to that. But those concepts of ACID, avoid, control, injure, and disarm, are in place for every gun situation, every knife situation, every club, claw hammer, crowbar, bat, doesn't make a difference. We're going to follow that same thought process and principles for any weapon. Thank you.